Evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Uncut History here on Readout Productions. All right, let's get that off the screen. How is everybody doing tonight? I almost forgot that today was Thursday, but kind of played around with it a little bit. I went, do I do a stream? Do I not do a stream? Probably will not be able to do a stream next week. Likely not going to have a video out this week. Will not have a video out next week. Let's do a stream this week. Let's do a stream tonight. So, boy, has it been a stressful week. It is October here in southwestern Pennsylvania, which means fall festival season. It is in peak operation. What that means is there are a lot of people here in the mountains, which means there are a lot of activities to be fulfilled here in the mountains, which means if you're employed here in southwestern Pennsylvania, like myself, you are very, very busy taking care of the tourism industry here. And will not be all that bad if you have a reliable vehicle to get you to and from employment. So, a few weeks ago, I put something out there on my Ko-fi link that I was needing to do some urgent repairs to my vehicle, which is a 2008 Hyundai Santa Fe. I would like to thank you all for supporting. I was not expecting any support. I did it as a last minute thing because financially I was in a bit of a dire straits. And after some delays, here's proof of concept right here. There is the bill. There's the bill. Come on, light. Come on. Maybe if the light turns off. It's all in pencil, so you're not going to read either way. But there's the proof. There's the proof. There's the bill. It was an expensive job. Ball joint and wheel bearing were replaced. If not, the wheel probably would have gone off entirely of the vehicle. And boy, would I be in a big trouble at that moment. So after much delay and after much expenses, those repairs were done. And I was so thankful to have a vehicle back, especially when I'm about to go into the grind that is October. And then we get to this scene today. So for whatever reason, this morning, my car decided it was not going to shift out of parking. And we're just going to sit there and do nothing. So that was a predicament that had to be solved. And I was thinking worst case that the transmission had gone because I've had some suspicion about the transmission the past few months. It's been driving fine, but it's the shifting's been getting harsher and harsher. Well, fortunately, it was not another expensive repair job. I did get the car back the same day as it was towed down. Turns out there was a lot of rust, a lot of corrosion within the, I guess you want to call it the shifting shaft down there where all the gears shift. So it wasn't the actual gear shifting itself, but rather a cable that allows for you to transfer from parking to drive to neutral to reverse into the various gears. That was corroding, and a piece of rust got lodged up into the shifting. And yeah, must have got lodged right as I was pulling in one day, which is probably for the best. So the gears didn't jam up while I was driving. So they got the corrosion out. Everything was greased down, lathered down in a nice fine grease. So everything should be squeaky clean in operations for the time being. Hopefully, I do not have any other crises with the vehicle. But I shouldn't even be saying that because that might curse myself. I'm drinking Fresca tonight because I just need something slightly different. I don't want to have any proper soda or any alcohol. But I think this can might be expired. It's tasting a little flat. Just another thing to add to the weekend. And what have I learned from all these car dilemmas? Well, I can simply not be a vehicular enthusiast. What I mean is there are people out there that adore cars. They can tell you every nut and bolt in a vehicle. They compare cars, say what cars are good, what cars are bad. They have full-blown car shows. And I just can't do it. I just can't do it. I don't. The part of the problem is Every car looks the same today. There is no unique features to a vehicle anymore. The other difficulty is they're less of a vehicle that runs on oil and gasoline and is about sheer raw energy, and they're more about computers. You know how many computerized crap goes into a vehicle today? And you know how much that costs a repair, how much a repair costs because of all the computerization to make cars safe, to make them safer? I had a dilemma a while ago. One of the valves, one of the valves to refill air in the tire got corroded, and I need to replace it. Well, that should just be a simple $20 repair. You buy the part, screw the one valve off, put the new one in. Oh, no, sir. You see, all the valves are tethered to sensors, which I get the purpose of them to let you know when your tire pressure is low. But for many years, they made simple utensils that allow you to gauge the pressure in a tire. Didn't need any sensors to do it, just a periodic checking. Don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. So now each tire, when I want to get the valve replaced, that cost me almost $50 per tire because one was getting corroded. I might as well just replace all four. So that was almost $200 right there just to replace valves because of computer sensors. And that doesn't begin to tell you about other vehicles. I have been blessed that I haven't had any much more severe problems. I've been blessed. But we were talking about on a drive today, there's like so they have on some of these new vehicles today, these front end collision sensors, which again, I get why they're put on there, but this collision sensor goes berserk when leaves end up on this windshield. They go berserk over the slightest movement. It doesn't actually tell you when there's actual risk. Everything is life threatening in this day and age, apparently. Yeah. And as Jersey, thank you for tuning in, says, pricing aerodynamics over style. Yeah. Yeah. There is no style, and they don't function at the time, and if you have to fix something, you might as well just go buy a new car. Have you seen the price of cars lately? Yeah, they suck. So, yeah, I can never be a car. I can't get into cars. Maybe if I was born 15, 20 years earlier, when cars were still unique, they all had unique styles, and it was all about the pure raw energy of the motor, maybe then I can get into vehicles. But because of this, all I think of when I hear cars are trouble. You know what I am into, however? You know what I do like? Trains! Boy, do I love trains. Yes, I can't be a car enthusiast, but boy, do I love trains. Hail Wrangler! Thank you for tuning in to today's stream. So, our segue into our first talking point for the evening. You know I like trains. I've done many videos on this channel about trains. I think we have, what, 5 videos currently out about the East Broadtop Railroad, who, by the way, are having our annual fall reunion this weekend, the 6th for the 8th. I got to attend the reunion last year. There are free videos of retracing history relating to last year's fall reunion. Sadly, like I said, very busy schedule this month. I will not be able to attend. That being said, if you are in central Pennsylvania and you happen to have Friday, Saturday, or Sunday off, definitely consider registering to be part of the fall reunion. I also think you should be able to purchase tickets at the tour as well for some of the rides, but don't quote me on that. Some of the activities include morning freight run to Colgate Grove. So they will have a photo charter. They'll have the whole consist of the locomotive be looking like a freight consist from the 1940s and 50s. The M1 will be taking an excursion to Colgate Grove. I actually got to ride the M1. It's this cool little motor car. Got to ride that back in February, and to have a video about that. The M3, oh boy, the M3 is, it's kind of hard to see in the, can I make the photograph larger? There we go. So this is the M3. Basically, it's the only custom made vehicle for the East Broadtop. It's this little inspection car, which has like the chassis of a vehicle, and it can put only like 5 or 6 people in it. I was intended to take executives along the line to inspect the rails. Gosh darn, is it a cute little vehicle? I had the chance to ride it last year at the reunion. It was a blast. It was a fun little ride. Actually, I got to ride with the vice president of the East Broadtop Foundation, so that was pretty cool. So they'll have a wide variety of activities. They'll have tours. The museum at Robertsdale, which is the southern terminus of the line, will be open Friday and Sunday. They'll be doing in-depth tours of the abandoned coal mines. I had a fantastic tour last year, Sunday, during the reunion. Oh, what was the gentleman's name? I forget it. He's featured in one of the episodes of Retracing History. Definitely be sure to check that episode out. They do these fantastic in-depth walking tours of the coal mines, and they're still very exposed ruins from the mining operations in Robertsdale. But that's not the only thing I want to talk about. That's not the main thing I want to talk about trains. So, a little entity known as the Bellefonte Historical Railroad Society, which is located in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. They're not too far from State College, Pennsylvania, so they're in central Pennsylvania. Well, they have been posting some interesting teasers the past few weeks. But before we talk about them teasers, let's talk a little bit about the Bellefonte Historical Railroad Society. The Bellefonte Historical Railroad Society is an all-volunteer historical society dedicated to promoting, preserving, and fostering a public appreciation for the railroading heritage of Bellefonte and Center County, Pennsylvania. Oop, a little more about the history. The society was chartered in 1984 with the intent of offering excursion service on the Nittany and Bald Eagle Railroad. At that time, the NBER was a newly formed short line operating the trackage in Center County, owned by another entity. At about the same time, the Bellefonte Historical Railroad Society acquired its first major piece of rolling stock in the form of RDC 19167. This self-powered diesel rail car was retired by SEPTA. They're the main transportation authority figure in the Philadelphia area, and given to the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission after a long career that began in 1953. It came to Bellefonte in December of 1984, and in 1992, Bellefonte acquired our second RDC, Massachusetts Bay Transportation Unit, RDC 19153. This car was built in 1962 for the Reading Company, and those guys, they're located out of northeastern Pennsylvania, the Reading Company. Both RDCs ran excursion service until 2005, when operations were suspended by the Bellefonte Railroad Historical Society. Regularity, compliance, and mechanical issues have kept both RDCs out of service since that time. In December 2014, RDC 9167 was sent by truck to Rail Mechanical Services in Columbia, Pennsylvania to begin repair work, intended to return the car to service in 2015. Yeah, about that. In the meantime, the balance of the BHRC fleet was initially made up of two track cars, a snowplow and caboose. The caboose and snowplow are former Bellefonte Central Railroad cars that reside as static displays adjacent to the Bellefonte station. One of the two train cars is a large ex-Bellefonte Central car. The other is a former Pennsylvania Railroad at Fairmont M9 that was used for special occasions. Most recently, the Railroad Society has acquired two additional track cars, a Fairmont M19, that's essentially a motor car, that something similar to the M3 we just saw earlier, currently used in our track in Lamont, and a former U.S. Army track car. Ooh, I like that. We're getting some military history here, in need of significant rehabilitation. Over the years, the Nittany and Bald Eagle Railroad grew to a system consisting of approximately 70 miles of track, with lines stretching from Tyrone to Lock Haven and from Milesburg to Dale's Summit and Pleasant Gap via Bellefonte. The only trackage this Railroad Society owns is about a mile beginning near the Center Concrete plant off to College Avenue and leading to the village of Lamont, just outside of State College. Major changes came to the Nittany and Bald Eagle Railroad in 1996 when Conrail began operating coal trains on trackage via the Nittany and Bald Eagle Railroad main line between Tyrone and Lock Haven. This brought significant track upgrades, increased traffic, and Conrail dispatching. Since Norfolk Southern took over half of former Conrail systems, run-through traffic has increased again due to additional coal trains. Another track upgrade, starting in the fall of 1999, has brought welded rail to the Nittany and Bald Eagle Railroad. Today, the Bellefonte Historical Railroad Society is working to expand its mission as a historical society. We hope to connect current generations to the railroad history of Bellefonte and Center County, both by preserving historical equipment and by providing excursions to bring that history to life and show that railroads are still a vital part of our transportation infrastructure. So, the BHRS, they were founded in the 90s. They got two RDCs. And what an RDC is, it is similar to the M1 that the East Broad Top owns. It's a self-propelled coach. So essentially, it looks like a coach that you'd expect a locomotive to pull, but it has a motor inside it, so it can propel itself. These were really popular, and they still are popular today in inner city areas. That being said, they also found really high use during the Great Depression in rural areas on rural short lines because, well, they're gas-powered vehicles. Gas at the time was more affordable than coal-burning locomotives. So, RDCs are very popular with railroad entities that were on a budget. So, Bellefonte Historical Railroad Society purchased two of them with the intent of running public train excursions to educate the public about its local railroad history. But with the increased importance of the Nittany and Bald Eagle Railroad as a freight operation, kind of put the Railroad Society in predicament. You really can't do excursions when freight is being used all the time. But on the other hand, you want the railroads to be used regularly. You want freight to be a big commodity, so you're in a bind. Now, the RDCs, as I mentioned, they went out of service in 2005 and have been needing repairs. They were expecting a 1-year repair for 9167. Yeah, there were far more problems than they were expecting with 9167. So it didn't come back in 2015. And actually, since the RDCs left, the Bald Eagle Nittany Lion, my apologies, the Nittany and Bald Eagle, I'm getting confused with the Nittany Lion, the mascot for Penn State University. The Nittany and Bald Eagle Railroad were actually loaning equipment to help the Railroad Society do their various operations. And predominantly, those operations are Thanksgiving and Christmas train operations. But after the pandemic, they stopped these operations. The Nittany and Bald Eagle Railroad are only doing freight operations at this time. They don't have the abilities to lend the equipment to do these public excursions. Well, for a little while now, the Bellefonte Historical Society, they've been running motor cars. Remember we mentioned about the M19. They've been running little excursions or motor cars, but they've been longing to do proper excursions. And what we've been seeing lately is this lovely little image of what appears to be Norfolk Southern hauling a certain RDC to Bellefonte. And ever since then, the Historical Society has been teasing images of the RDC, and it seems all but certain that RDC 9167 has returned to Bellefonte tracks, which presumably means it has received its repair work. And the episode says right here, oh, well, what's going on here? It says right here, 9167 is back. Bear with us while we work to get her ready to ride the rails again. And they also had this little interesting post. Apparently during the restoration work, they found all this gunk lost and found, including a Frogger's Adventures Game Boy cartridge, which they even mention here. Did you know Frogger's Adventures Temple of the Frog for Nintendo Game Boy Advance was released in November 22nd, 2001. This means some poor kid probably received this game as a Christmas present that year, brought their Game Boy on board, and then lost their cartridge. I can still hear their mom's voice echoing down for the years. I told you to leave your Game Boy in the car. I knew you would lose something. So it is now an artifact. That Game Boy cartridge is now an artifact. So again, it's not certain when the Bellefonte Historical Railroad Society will return to excursions, but it appears they got 9167 back, and it may be back under operation. Time will only tell. And if 9167 returns to operation, will there be a potential Readout Productions video? Time will tell. Only time will tell. So yeah, that was some good news I got to hear this year. No Rumble tonight? Yes. Like I said, I had a chaotic day. I had a rough day. I had a car. I didn't have a car. I got a car back. It's endless. It's endless. So I was kind of there, spaghetti brain going, do I do a stream? And then it was around 7:30. Okay, I'm going to do a stream. So sadly, there will be no live stream on Rumble this week. The recap should come up. The recap, fingers crossed, should come up. You should go for fun. I would like to go for fun. I like fun. I like fun. We like fun on Readout Productions. Oh, I didn't even read it though. 420. And thank you for the $2, Manji. I do greatly appreciate it. I do greatly appreciate it. So now we're 20 minutes in. And you can take a look at the title of this stream, and you're probably wondering, what the heck does the Bald Eagle and Nittany Railroad have to do with the Battle of Perryville? Well, that's what we're going to go to next. We're just going to no easy segue. We're just yeeting ourselves over to talk about the Battle of Perryville. Let me get some things set up. Yep, hard mode. Can Redoubt Productions hard shift from trains to the American Civil War? The short answer is, I truthfully don't know. Hopefully. Yes, fun does work. Well, I don't think anybody on this map had any fun in our next conversation. So we are talking about the Battle of Perryville because, and yes, I have to check the calendar because I'm lazy. This Sunday will be the 161st anniversary of a certain battle relating to the American Civil War, the Battle of Perryville. The more I drink this Fresca, the more I have regrets. Anyways, 161st anniversary of the Battle of Perryville, which was waged on October 8th, 1862. It was one of the largest battles fought in the state of Kentucky during the conflict, and ultimately decided that Kentucky would not be a part of the Confederacy. It would remain with the Union. Now, how do we get to the Battle of Perryville? Well, got to wind the clocks all the way back to the summer of 1862. So, May of 1862. Things are going pretty good for the Union. Yes, they lost at First Manassas and they lost at Wilson's Creek, which, if you remember, a few weeks ago, we did a whole live stream on the Battle of Wilson's Creek. But by 1862, the Union had turned around those early setbacks, had made them look like flukes. What we had happening was out west, and I'm talking very far out west, like I'm talking New Mexico and Arizona, small Union force had turned back a Confederate attempt to invade New Mexico and Arizona at the Battle of Glorieta Pass. In the Mississippi River Valley, Grant's Western armies had succeeded in capturing Fort Donelson and Fort Henry along the Tennessee River, then moving down the Tennessee all the way to, moving down the rivers all the way to Shiloh, where the bloody battle Shiloh was held. Now, Grant's army was bloodied, but they had whooped the Army of Tennessee at the Battle of Shiloh. The Union Navy had taken New Orleans and were making their way up the Mississippi River, and had taken most of the Mississippi River. All but 30 miles of the Mississippi River were in Union hands by midsummer of 1862. Moving farther east, however, there were high hopes that George B. McClellan's Union Army of the Potomac was going to take out Richmond and the war would be over by Christmas. Oh, gosh darn it, there's that saying again. The war will be over by Christmas. Every time that phrase is uttered, you know bad things are going to happen. You know bad things are going to happen. And indeed they did, because George B. McClellan does not like actually fighting a battle. What he likes to do is simply outmaneuver the enemy. He does not have the stomach for warfare. You can't blame the guy fully. I mean, I don't have the stomach for warfare. I don't want to have to kill people. But when you're in a dire situation, you need to end this suffering as soon as possible. Taking your time to move the entire army by a large flotilla down the Chesapeake Bay, offloaded them, and then marching up the Virginia Peninsula to get behind the Confederate army maybe will take too much time. And President Lincoln basically put it best: you're basically using all of my resources to find a field of battle. You'll find a field of battle anywhere. The numbers aren't going to change. Confederate numbers are not going to change no matter where McClellan relocates. And indeed, McClellan took a long time to get in position to attack Richmond, the Confederate capital. The wounding of Confederate General Joe Johnston put Robert E. Lee in command of the Army of Northern Virginia, and Lee vigorously outmaneuvered McClellan, chased him down the peninsula, and McClellan retreated back to Washington, D.C. The immediate threat to Richmond was thwarted, and then the Confederacy got bold. They discovered, all right, we can't do long-term strategy, but boy, can we win battles. And if we keep winning battle after battle, we keep demoralizing the Union. After enough Union defeats, maybe they'll be willing to reach a compromise. Maybe we'll be able to keep some part of our Confederacy. So keep in mind, the Confederacy knows that they're greatly outmatched, even though McClellan has retreated. But battle after battle, victory after victory may wear the attrition of the Union and may convince European intervention. So most famously, Robert E. Lee produced a strategy to invade Maryland, and he actually planned to go all the way and threaten Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Now, if you watch the most recent edition of Retracing History, you know that did not go according to plan. McClellan figured out what Lee was up to in the east. He was able to pin Lee down along the banks of Antietam Creek, and the bloodiest single day of American history ensued at the Battle of Antietam. Lee was bloodied. However, McClellan allowed him to escape at the end of the day, but the Confederate initiative had been lost, at least for the time being, in the Eastern Theater. But that was not the only invasion of the North. This gets overlooked. Lee's idea was not just one army. I mean, that's pretty bold, and the Union could concentrate all their forces on one army. Sorry if you could have heard that. There was a giant truck going up the mountain. There was a giant truck going up the mountain. No, there was a whole other operation happening in Kentucky that was known as the Heartland Offensive. And just as Lee is going into Maryland, Confederate General Braxton Bragg is going to launch off from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and invade Kentucky. Why Kentucky? What is so important about Kentucky? Well, Kentucky is a border state. The border states, they were on the fence about the idea of secession over the debate of slavery. They did not like the Lincoln administration, but they were not fully agreeing that secession was legal, that you could not just simply up and leave. So they kind of wanted to be neutral and be very quiet. Some of these guys were constitutional unionists. These were guys that basically like, let's not talk about the slave issue anymore. Let's act like it doesn't exist, and let's rock back and forth and hope cooler heads will prevail. That was the constitutional unionists in a nutshell during the 1860 election. So Kentucky wanted to be neutral. They stayed with the Union, but they're on very shaky terms with the Union. Bragg hoped he could exploit this. He hoped by moving a Confederate army into Kentucky, he would have Kentuckians come out of the countryside and join the Confederate cause of rebelling and seceding from the corrupt Union. And he may be able to go the whole way through Kentucky, cross the Ohio River, and threaten the breadbasket of the Union, Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois, and also threaten those vital rail arteries that run from Pittsburgh to Chicago, which run right through the Midwest. So Kentucky was very important to defending the Union and important to defending the Confederacy. It's also important to mention, I actually wrote this in the description, Kentucky is the birth state of what two key individuals? You can answer in the chat right now. What two key individuals were born in Kentucky? I'm allowing you to have a open book test tonight because I am so exhausted. I'm so tired. That would be President Davis of the Confederacy and President Lincoln of the Union. So there's that sentimental value. Both leaders of each country, they're going to want to defend their home turf. You're gonna have to defend your home turf. So, in August of 1862, Bragg moves his Army of Tennessee from Chattanooga. They cross over the state line into Kentucky, but he's not alone. He actually divided his force up. So 2/3 of the army are going with Bragg, while the other third are going with General Kirby Smith. And Kirby Smith I believe he went actually by rail up to Knoxville, and then from Knoxville crossed over into Kentucky. And throughout August, there are going to be a couple early battles in his Heartland campaign as an Union force led by General Nelson will try to defend Kentucky from Kirby Smith at the Battle of Richmond. Now, this was a comparatively small action, but small to compare to Antietam and Gettysburg. This was still actually a very vicious fight. And there's a lovely museum, a private organization runs a museum to preserve key locations relating to this early battle in the Heartland campaign. Some of the locations relating to the Battle of Richmond include this Rogers House. This brick, stately Federal-style home on a high knoll was constructed around 1811 by Adam Rogers and was his family's home during the battle. As well as the Rogers dwelling, it served as a roadside inn for many years and is now the visitor center for the Battle of Richmond. They also have Pleasant View, a home in southeastern Madison County built by Joseph Barnett, a large landowner and magistrate, in 1825. In addition, they also talk about the Mount Zion Church, which saw some heavy fighting during the Battle of Richmond. In fact, let's go a little bit further in there. I wonder if they'll tell you about, okay, it's just words. Unfortunately, I was hoping there'd be more. I hope there'd be more visuals. But Zion Church, There are bullet scars along the south face of the build. Oh, I think both sides of the building. I believe they have some pews inside that still are hit with bullet holes, and it was used as a field hospital after the battle. Federal forces occupied Richmond, and the federal medical director commandeered the Madison County Courthouse and Madison Female Institute as hospitals. Irwin noted that he had few medical officers, instruments, ambulances, tents, or other camp equipage to enable them to perform their duties. Mount Zion became a field hospital early in the fighting on August 30th. A yellow flag denoted that fact. However, the church was struck by Confederate artillery, scars of which remain to this day on the south side near the top of the electrical service. Confederate forces took control of the church as Union soldiers fled toward Richmond. Treatment of wounded became a cooperative effort between both sides, with many members of surrounding communities helping out. In addition to military personnel, several local doctors, namely Dr. William Chase, Dr. Charles Wilmore, and others, assisted in the treatment of the wounded. The dead were buried across the road from Mount Zion and eventually moved to Richmond Cemetery. The Union dead were moved to Camp Nelson National Cemetery. And there's actually a little map there. There's a little battlefield park, which preserves a small piece of the larger fighting, but there are some off-site locations, including the battlefield golf course. Yes, Kirby Smith played a game of 10 holes there, So, yeah, it's a small site. It's not large scale. It's a smaller engagement, but these were one of the first engagements as the Confederates move up into Kentucky. Oh, we're going ahead of our story. They would also fight again near Munfordville. My apologies. This is Bragg's force moving up. They would fight another Union army at Munfordville. They actually fought over this humongous railroad trestle. See, I brought the railroads back in. I'm very happy. This humongous railroad trestle. And they actually forced the capture of a Union garrison at Munfordville. So you're seeing early on, Bragg's invasion of Kentucky was going very well at the same time that Lee's invasion of Maryland was falling apart. However, even though Bragg was able to secure Lexington and later Frankfort and even got a Confederate governor of Kentucky sworn in. So this is the only time that the Confederacy actually captured a Union state capital. Only time they ever did it. They got very close to doing it at Harrisburg during the Gettysburg campaign, but this is the only time they fully secured it. They'd established a Confederate government in Kentucky. You would probably be saying, well, sounds like Bragg's accomplished most of his missions. All you got to do is keep moving to the Ohio River. Well, there's one problem. Notice all that blue around Louisville? That is the Union Army of the Ohio, commanded by John Carlos Buell. Now, Buell had a pretty good reputation and face value up to this point. Buell was seen as a hero of sorts at the Battle of Shiloh. His Army of Ohio had reinforced Grant, allowing for victory. That being said, Buell came from a similar cloth as McClellan. Buell was more focused on outmaneuvering the enemy rather than obliterating the enemy. They still did not perceive the American Civil War was going to have to involve conquest to end it. As such, when Bragg moved into Kentucky, Buell basically just pulled all of his troops and ran to the Ohio River. They actually, I think, went the whole way to Cincinnati and waited and hunkered down. But when they found that Bragg was taking his time to establish a Confederate government and trying to round up some troops amongst the Kentucky populace, Buell saw an opportunity to move back in, reoccupy Louisville, and now started moving toward Bragg. Bragg was getting a little frustrated by this point. It's now October of 1862, and though he got a Confederate government in Kentucky, he still doesn't have all of Kentucky, and he's not getting as much support as he had hoped. Yeah, funny thing, being invaded does not win people over to your side. It's funny. People just never learn this in history. Invasion is not going to make people want to join your side. Funny, I wonder why. Bragg is getting frustrated and actually is starting to move toward the south. And he's going to move toward a position at Perryville, Kentucky. It's a small little town. It's a small little town, a few hundred, a lot of farmers. But what's important is Perryville has a really good water source, the Chaplin River, and its tributary, I believe it's called the Doctor Creek. Buell is also in need of water. It's becoming a very hot, very dry October. Kind of similar to how the first week of October has been here in Western Pennsylvania, down in Mentionville. We've had like 80-degree days thus far. Tomorrow it's supposed to rain. So these armies are being drawn to Perryville for the promise of waters. And the big engagement of the Heartland Offensive has been set up. the Battle of Perryville. So here we are, Battle Perryville, October 8th, 1862. And let me peek in a little bit, see how everybody's doing. Oh, I think we're talking about Wrangler's book. How's the book going, Wrangler? How's the potato gun going? You forgot about that. It's fair. If we were ranking him as a part of the American presidents, which we're not because he was of another country, he would rank as one of the worst. And he is the only Confederate president. And I still, even though he's the first and only Confederate president, I can't still say he was a good one. You can't even use that default because he was so frustrating. I have a lot of frustrations with Davis. Actually, part of it's relating to why he kept Bragg in command for so long, because they were bunk buddies. They were best pals. All right, the Battle of Perryville. So Bragg's strategy, he sees these Union forces coming down from the north, moving on high bluffs overlooking Chaplin River and Dr. Creek to the northwest of Perryville. And his strategy is, all right, I have a chance to hit the Union Army. He is going to, in theory, come around the Confederate, Bragg's strategy is to take his Confederate army and try to move and smash the left flank of the Union line. So if we're the Union, the left flank. I don't know if my cursor appears. Let me zoom in a little bit. It's a little bit glary, but if you look up here, the top portion of the map, he thinks that's going to be where the line ends, and he's going to be able to get behind the Union flank and outflank them. Something else to mention, the full Union Army is not present at Perryville, so this is not all of the Army of the Ohio. Bragg may perceive it as such, but that is not the case. This is only, roughly, this is one corps, commanded by General McCook, and he will get a few reinforcements from different units throughout the day. So it's really, Bragg thinks he's facing off against John Carlos Buell, but in reality, he's only facing off against a portion of Buell's army. So Bragg actually has an advantage that he does not realize. Another problem is the topography. Let me show you this image right here. Not that one. Not that one either. This one. This is a modern day image of the Perryville battlefield. It is very, very hilly. We're not talking about little swells. These are proper hills, one right after another. You really cannot see the enemy. So Bragg is not getting good reconnaissance of the Union positions on these bluffs. He thinks, again, this is the entire Army of Ohio that he's about to surround and entrap, when in reality, it's a small piece of it. It's still a very dangerous portion. I mean, we're still talking about at least 10, 15, 20,000 Union soldiers up on these bluffs. And unfortunately, when he maneuvers his big right hook, it doesn't get around the Union flank. It actually smashes right into the Union center. The worst thing that he wants. And because of these steep bluffs going up and down, when these Confederate forces crest one hillside, they come in perfect range of Union artillery on the other hillside. They're torn to shreds. And that is the story of Battle Perryville. The Confederates will crest a hill. They'll be pounded by Union artillery. McCook is going to try to call for reinforcements. He's writing to Buell repeatedly, hey, we're being attacked. We're being surrounded. Send us reinforcements. And though the artillery is impactful, tears up Confederate attacks, eventually the Confederates start getting their troops across the waterways, and they start outnumbering McCook's forces, and McCook will start falling back from one ridgeline to the next ridgeline to the next ridgeline. The battle starts at the height of the heat during the day at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and it will go on until 7 p.m. in the evening. Now, the problem is with the Battle of Perryville, Buell is getting all of these reports several miles away from McCook that he's being under attack, and Buell's going around, where's the battle? I don't hear any guns going off. This is another case of the topography creating blind spots and creating depth zones. I forget what the technical term is. Again, we were talking about this during the Wilson's Creek live stream. We were talking about those, I want to say, atmospheric depressions, these atmospheric pockets. Because of the tremendous swelling of the landscape, it kind of keeps the sounds of battle isolated to that vicinity. It doesn't spread out across the landscape. So Buell doesn't hear gunshots. He doesn't hear cannon firing. He has no idea what McCook's talking about. He doesn't realize that Bragg is making a full-fledged assault on McCook's line, and McCook is losing ground. Now, eventually, certain lower ranking Union officials realize what's going on, and they will start rushing reinforcements, fragments of reinforcements. So, like, they're throwing regiments or throwing a brigade to McCook's assistance to slow Bragg's tide. Now, Bragg and the Confederate Army Tennessee, after a grueling firefight over several ridges and taking heavy artillery fire, they will eventually get very near to taking possession of a key crossroads. The Oh, I can't read it there. Oh, a little closer. The Dixieville Crossroads, two major road arteries. One goes down to Perryville, the other is going up to the northeast, the other is going to the southwest. If Bragg gets possession of these crossroads, he has a chance to put himself between McCook and the rest of the Union Army. He could divide the Union Army here, but high casualties on both sides, darkness, and just general confusion of communication prevent Bragg from succeeding. He will call off any future assaults that day, and he makes it at the nightfall. Tells his field commanders, "It's been a rough day, but we do have most of the field. We're not going anywhere. We're going to take them out in the morning." 24 hours later, Bragg orders a retreat. What happened is the question that many ask to this day. What went in Bragg's mind from time saying, "All right, we whipped the Union, we'll finish them the next day," to, "All right, it's time to withdraw"? This is something that will become common with Bragg's command. Bragg and Buell are both cut from the same cloth. They are cautious. They try to outmaneuver each other. Another thing, though, that Bragg is known for is being very short-tempered and changing tune on a dime. He can change an attitude on a wit's notice. For better or worse, I may have something relating to Bragg and I can be a bit short-tempered and I can turn on a dime. Apologies about that. I'll try not to be Bragg on the rest of the stream. But Bragg, yeah, the slightest negativity, yeah, he would change his tune in a heartbeat. I mean, you also have to understand, he hadn't got as many reinforcements from people of Kentucky as he had hoped. Trying to have a Confederate government held down while a whole third of the state is still in Union hands, that's not easy. So after this battle at Perryville, Bragg withdraws his Confederate army back across the Chaplin River, back across the Dr. Creek, and starts moving for the Kentucky-Tennessee border. Buell is going to pursue Bragg, but he's going to keep his distance. He's not going to engage him in a proper battle, and Bragg will pull his forces across, and the Heartland offensive is over. It is ultimately a Confederate defeat. Now, the question is, well, how do you label the Battle of Perryville? Is this a Confederate victory? Is this a Union victory? What do you guys think in the chat? Here's what I will say. Tactically, Bragg had the better day. This may be one of Bragg's better tactical performances. That being said, it's because he has an advantage over McCook. Bragg is putting the whole Army of Tennessee here, where McCook, he is only a portion of Buell's Army of Ohio. So Bragg goes in with an advantage. That being said, Bragg gives up the assault. He retreats. He's too bloody to continue the offensive. Buell is going to quietly drive Bragg, sweep him out of Kentucky, and Kentucky will remain in Union hands for the rest of the American Civil War. Another thing that probably led to Hardee's decision, my apologies, not Hardee. I'd be interested if Hardee commanded the whole army. What led to Bragg's decision was in part that to the west, the Confederates had tried another offensive at the same time. So not only did you have Lee invading Maryland, not only did you have Bragg invading Kentucky, you had Price's army. Yeah, there's Price, our old friend Price from Wilson's Creek. Price led a Confederate army to attack Corinth, Mississippi, a key rail juncture not far from where the Battle of Shiloh was fought. However, Price was unsuccessful in pushing the Union out of their defensive positions around Corinth and was forced to retreat. So all three Confederate offensives ultimately failed in the fall of 1862. And because of these fordings of Union, sorry guys, we're hitting the 1 hour mark. The brain's starting to have a flat. Because of fording three Confederate offensives, Lincoln had enough confidence that he can sign in the Emancipation Proclamation. That did not look entirely as a vain war measure that's not going to do anything. He had to hold off doing that because, well, McClellan got defeated in the peninsula. Then you had the Battle of Second Manassas. Antietam was a bloody mess. At least with these efforts, it's like, well, generally the Confederates were driven back. But it wasn't because the Union Army were excelling. The Union Army still had a lot to learn. And that's really displayed here at Perryville. Buell did not listen to McCook's cries for reinforcements. This could have been a far greater disaster for the Union than it ended up being. Uh, because of the atmosphere that the battles fought in, Buell didn't hear any gunshots. He just assumed, McCook is seeing nothing. He's fighting skirmishers. What is he talking about? And because of his inaction at the Battle of Perryville, Buell would ultimately be relieved of command by President Lincoln and be replaced by General William Rosecrans, who would get a major Union victory over New Year's 1862-1863 at the Battle of Murfreesboro, or the Battle of Stones River. And Rosecrans would have a pretty good career right up until he lost to Braxton Bragg at the Battle of Chickamauga, which is a story for another day. So you don't really hear about Kentucky in the American Civil War. And these battles were not massive. They're not nowhere on the scale of a Gettysburg or Antietam, but they still have dire consequences to American history and deserve to be remembered. My cat's down here rubbing her head against all the paper I have. Usually this is when she prepares to bite me because I'm not paying attention to her enough. But here's the Facebook page for the Perryville Battlefield State Historic Site. Now, I don't know for certain. I think the battlefield itself is property of the state of Kentucky, where the museum and most of the events and the staff, it is a volunteer non-for-profit, the Friends of the Perryville Battlefield. If somebody's watching. If somebody's watching on the replay, if you want to let me know in the comments, how is the command structure set up for the Perryville battlefield? I'm very interested. I mean, I'm always open to have guests on to shill about their historic location. I want to get the word out. I wouldn't mind having a representative of the Battle of Perryville being on here, but I need to figure out how that command structure works. So they do have a Facebook page with a variety of different events. November 11th will be the third annual Luminary and Memorial Walk. Of course, this weekend will be the battle anniversary. I'm sure they have a variety of programs designed to interpret the events. Yep, here we are. Live in History. Oh, they're going to have the living history of the 79th Pennsylvania Infantry. The 79th, interesting, Pennsylvania. 79th Pennsylvania Infantry will be having displays. Come see the Independent Rifles do a living history of the 79th Pennsylvania Infantry at the Battle of Perryville. In our living history area, the United States Sanitary Commission and the displaced citizens of Perryville will interact with the public. The event is free. Saturday Living History. So if you're in the Perryville area, this should be a good event. I now recognize the name, Independent Rifles. They're a good unit. Do a lot of good living history events. So this is definitely one, if you're in the area, definitely go see it. It's actually next weekend, but you know. And just as a friendly reminder, this is the official website of the Perryville Battlefield. I am going to drop the link in the description below. Summer hours are from April 1st for October 31st. The museum is open from 9 to 5, Monday for Saturday, 11 to 5 on Sundays. The battlefield's open 7 to 7, 7 days a week. Winter hours are November through March. Museum is open 10 to 3, Wednesday for Saturdays, and are closed Sunday, Monday, and Tuesdays. The battlefield is open 8 to 4 every day. So this actually makes me believe this might be entirely a private property. So they used to do I know they did reenactments in the past. I think this year they're not doing that. It might be a biennial thing, or maybe they've just ceased doing it. But they will have a commemoration with guest speakers, battlefield tours, which that's the stuff I'm in for. I'm in for the guest speakers and battlefield tours because I want to go on the ground. I want to talk about all the details, the smallest anachronisms that happen on these battlefields. And there again is the Independent Rifles. They'll be there October 14th. Yeah. So cool little site here. They don't have a very big museum, but I do believe they have a variety of artifacts. Oh, I should have used this map. This is a cool map. So there's Perryville. You can see the Union placement of troops and the Confederate placement of troops. U.S. 3rd Corps, commanded by Charles Gilbert, was west of town. So it was the 1st Corps of the Army of Ohio. That's what McCook was attached to. And they're the ones that took the brunt of the fighting. And then Gilbert would have rushed reinforcements. And you can see where Buell was. He was all the way down here. So he couldn't hear any of that gunshots. He couldn't hear the sounds of battle because of the topography. It isolated the noise. All right. So let me get back over to the stream. There is the link. Perry the Platypus may have been there. He may have commanded. You never know. He may have been. Maybe that's where he got his name from. Maybe Perry the Platypus is a veteran of the Battle of Perryville. He probably would command troops better than what Bragg did later on during the American Civil War. Oh boy, I cannot know. This is one of Bragg's better performances. And if you're thinking, geez, this is a good performance, oh, get ready. Maybe in November I can fast forward a year and we can talk about the battles for Chattanooga. Oh God, he does a number. Oh, thank you, Maji. $5. Oh, you didn't have to do that. $5. First time I have heard of this battle. Well done. Well, I'm glad you are being, I would say educated, but I am Readout Productions. I don't know if I excel at education, but I do try to edumacate. So you have been educated. Oh, yay, A.S. Burnett should be in here. A.S. Burnett is somewhere here. Where is he? A.S. Burnett has just finished playing chess at a club. We are all doing good tonight after the stress of having to deal with car problems in the 21st century. And you got to learn all why I cannot be a car enthusiast and why I am a train person who can also talk about the American Civil War. All right. Now, before we wrap up tonight, I do have to make our cultural shill, not relating to historical culture, but rather just simple literature culture. Because I always say, I do not believe that, at least here in the United States, I do not believe we have a healthy culture. I mean, everybody's fighting against each other. It seems like we're more divided than ever since this in 1862, since the American Civil War. And one way we can resolve that is instead of trying to smack each other in the face verbally over Twitter, we could always get some good, fresh news stories that we can be inspired by. So let me segue over. I've shilled this one before, and I'm going to shill it again. Amaranth Angels. Amaranth Angels. Cute girls flying starfighters manga. An original, action-packed sci-fi manga. It is currently on Kickstarter. 14 days to go. $7,000 have been pledged, but the goal is for 13,000. And this isn't all for nothing in campaign, folks. So if 13,000 is not hit, this is not going to print. But let's see if this does get the whole way through, what you may get. Volume 1, written by Yakov Merkin, illustrated by Philip Son Gaspar. An exciting, cute sci-fi action-adventure manga in the vein, now I'm adding this, I would assume in the vein of having Top Gun in space with anime waifu. So, you get a variety of different covers to choose from. We'll scroll down a little bit more, but first, let's tell you a bit of the story. Saya Nishisawa was a starfighter pilot prodigy, flying alongside her big sister Kuriana in the Amaranth Angels Performance Squadron. So I'm assuming they're a bit like the Blue Angels, but for space, where they conducted elaborate flying demonstrations and competed in mock battles, which they nearly always won. Things were perfect until tragedy struck, where Karena lost her life in a sudden accident. Scarred by this, Saya wanted nothing more than to run as far from a starfighter cockpit as possible. So she resigned from the squadron and left Earth to start anew at a new school on a space station near the edge of the solar system. However, fate has ways of forcing people back to their calling. When the station comes under attack by an unknown alien force, Saya and her friends, caught completely unprepared, need to take flight in order to survive. But when the smoke clears, the 5 of them are stranded far from home and thrust into a far bigger fight than they could have ever imagined. Fly into the action with the first 200-page volume. So there is the primary cover with our 1, 2, 3, 4 quintet of fighter pilots that'll be the stars of Amaranth Angels. Amaranth Angels is an original sci-fi adventure manga, doing fully a manga style, including being drawn to be read from right to left. It's a cute girls doing military thing story in the vein of anime like Girls on Panzer. You are a man of culture, Yakov Merkin. High School Fleet, the magnificent Kotobuki, and like Horse Recoil. You, sir, are an extreme man of taste. And Fred the cat that, tore the terrible towel down last week and then caused the Steelers to completely implode against the Houston Texans, is up to mischievous stuff. And I probably will have to depart very soon to check out what that mischievous stuff is, but not before I continue shilling Amref Angels. So you can expect cute, likable characters and fast-paced, exciting Starfighter action brought to you with a gripping story and amazing art. And there is the alternate cover. The 31-page prologue chapter is available to read for free over on Webtoons as a preview. Amref Angels, Wilted Flowers. So that sets up Saya's prologue, her backstory, what happened, that tragic accident during one of their performances. And I'm actually going to drop the link first to the Webtoons. And then before we wrap up tonight, I will drop the link to the full Kickstarter. So starting with $10, you will get the digital PDF. You'll get to own Amref Angels electronically, but physical media, it's where it's at. Partly because it's just cool to have the cover, and totally not because I don't have any space. Yeah, I totally have more space back there. Give me another cover, Yakov. I could take another cover. So, action cover, cute cover on the back. Tankobon size, which is for $20, and then I go a little bit bigger. The trade paperback size is $25. Crowdfunding exclusive. Cute cover, action cover on the back. Tankobon size is $25. The trade paperback size is $35. So it does go up a little bit if you want the cute cover for the crowdfunding. And then the combo pack, you get one of each. Tankobon size will be $40 to get the combo pack. And if you want to up that to a trade size, that'll be $60 for the pack. Crowdfunding exclusive. Fleet bundle, action cover and cute cover versions of both Tankobon and trade paperback size is $90. And then we get to the fun level. The level where if I had money, I may be splurging. Crowdfunding exclusive. Ad space. Got a creative project? Advertise it here. Limited to free. See reward description for additional details. So for $200, you can get an ad placed at the end or maybe the start of the comic. And if you go to $250, you can have an advertisement within the story. Your ad will be part of the artwork. One has already been claimed. A few more are still available. Gosh, I want to do that one. And then for $300 for you out there that this is for you. Actually, this one is not for me as much as I joke at myself. Waifu Promotions. Have one of the girls promote your project. Limited to free. See reward description for additional details. Has somebody done the waifu one yet? Yes, somebody has done the waifu one yet. 2 of 3 left. Fair play, man. Fair play. And there's just some more artwork and development. Each physical backer will receive a sticker with tier pledges. Preview pages, some more of the preview. I love the black and white artwork on this. The black and white artwork is so good. The color contrast is so good. And for no additional shipping for add-ons, acrylic standees. Yay, $9 for one standee, 2 for $16. And if you want the whole quintet, $40. Final designs may vary. And there's an example of one of the standees. And in case you're unsure, it's like, I like the plot, but I'm not confident. I mean, is this a first-time offer? No, sir. Merkin has done a wide variety, although this is his first, I believe this is his first foray into an outright manga. He has done a lot of light novels, including a history book, which that kind of adds to the bonus value. That kind of makes him more credible that I can shill him here on Readout Productions. So he has a various different series, light novel series, and he has written a history book. So why not? There should be no reason why you should not support. You should not back Amref Angels. So I'm going to drop the link. Remember, this only works if everybody backs and we get to the full 13,000. There is the link in the description below. And that is going to do it. That is going to do it for today's stream. I hope you guys have had a good time. Like I said, this was a last minute decision, and I think it worked out. No terrible towels were harmed in the making of this edition of Retracing History. So who knows? Maybe the Steelers will win this week. Maybe. Matt Canada's still the offensive coordinator, right? Yeah, we're doomed. Okay, so before we wrap up, probably should just hit the... Oh, before we do wrap up, do want to do some house cleaning. There will be no stream next week. When I say I am busy, I am very busy this month. This week's actually midterms for my college classes. And then next week, oh boy. I can't really say what I'm doing next week because it more involves work, public officiating, but it's gonna be fun. So October is a very, very busy month again for me and for most of us living here in the mountains of Western Pennsylvania. We will try to get through it. We will try to entertain and educate the tourists that come to this area. We want you to come up here to learn about our history. We also would ask that you respect our mountains. But once we get through October, I do have a few plans for November. I don't want to go too into detail in case those plans don't work out, but it looks like there will be a short trip in November to somewhere. So there will be new Retracing History videos in the near future. And December, if all goes well, I'm planning to do an East Broad Top trip. Because since I'm not able to do it for the friends reunion, I'd like to go up to see their Christmas trains. Christmas in coal country. Because I like trains. And with that, folks, we're going to hit the music. Thank you guys for tuning in today. I hope you had a great stream. Be sure on your way out to hit the like button. Hit the like button. It's right below. That lets the algorithm know that you like learning about history on the YouTube platform. And you can hit the like button too. You can hit it too if you're watching the recap on Rumble. Be sure to share the stream if you want to get your friends involved with learning history, want them to explore more of my videos. I'd greatly appreciate it. If you want to be the first notified when we go live, be sure to subscribe to Readout Productions. Thank you for watching. I will see you whenever I have the chance to see you next. Have a good night, folks.